Get ready to be inspired by the great things happening in rural education. The Rural Scoop will bring you new ideas and innovative solutions. We'll dive into education issues and we'll highlight what's working in your rural communities. You'll hear from a variety of educators, administrators, professionals, and others who will provide relevant and engaging content in each episode. And now, serving up the scoop, here's your host, Dr. Melissa Sadorf.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Rural Scoop, where we dig into the heart of rural education leadership, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Sadorf, and today I am excited to introduce someone who wears two big hats in the rural education world. That's Dr. Bill Chapman. He's the Superintendent of London ISD in Texas, and he's also the President-elect of the National Rural Education Association. His path through rural education has been a rich one, from his early days as a history teacher and coach to leading multiple districts, advocating for rural schools at the state and national level, and shaping policy as the chair of NREA's legislative committee. He's been recognized as a distinguished educator, honored for his leadership in school libraries, and celebrated for his commitment to rural communities. So today we're going to talk about his journey and the challenges and opportunities that face us today in rural education, as well as what it means to lead with both purpose and perspective in a time of rapid change. So Bill, welcome to the Rural Scoop.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Great to be here.
Wonderful. Well, you've had a career. Let's start with where you started. You've had a career that's taken you from the classroom and the coaching field to the superintendent's office. So can you walk us through that journey and then any key moments or turning points that you faced with deciding to take it into the administrative realm?
I will try to not take up all your time doing that, but I can try. I began as you said, as a social studies teacher and coach at Corpus Christi Moody High School, which was an urban inner city school. I grew up in Corpus Christi on the outskirts, left, came back, and I was a soccer coach. I was a head soccer coach and an assistant football coach, and I taught U.S. history, advanced U.S. history, world geography, and AP economics during my time at Moody High School. Wow. I spent 6 years there. Loved every minute of it. As I was in that last year, I actually started my master's program at A&M Corpus Christi at that time, and was beginning to go get the administration. I honestly was getting it. My wife helped push me in administration, but I was getting it honestly because I thought I was going to be an athletic director, head football coach, and I wanted to better prepare myself for that piece. That was my initial thought. We then relocated. My wife's father fell ill up in outside Houston, and so I applied at schools around the area. And I was hired at Huntsville High School, which was more of a rural school to some extent, a large rural school, just because there's nothing there but the prison and the university and a school. And there I was hired as a head soccer coach and football coach, and there I was teaching world geography and AP world history were my subjects there, and so. In those last 2 years of teaching and coaching, I also went back to Sam Houston. Literally, I walked in the day before registration was due for the fall semester and registered and signed up in their master's program there at Sam Houston and began finishing up my master's program for the last 18 months. So glad I did that spring semester. Initially, I really thought I was still going the AD head football coach route, but I started digging into it and really, as I say, I'm an old coach at heart. I crossed over to the dark side and went the administration route instead, and was hired at Huntsville as a assistant principal. So I began as an AP there at the same campus I taught at for those 2 years. That first year was fantastic because I was an AP and I was the head soccer coach. So I got to do car duty in shorts, which in Texas, doing pickup duty is hot and hot and hot.
Sure.
But I got to do it in shorts, so at least it wasn't quite as bad as it could be for some other friends that were out there. I gave up with coaching. I was an AP there for a full 3 years. Then I went to Willis High School, just a little south of Huntsville, more of a suburban school, still about 2,000 kids. It was the ninth grade assistant principal For a year, I was actually oversaw a ninth grade school within a school concept where we clustered our kids and grouped our kids.
Right.
I had a lot of fun doing that. Got some really good results with how we reframed the school there. And then I was promoted to the associate principal for curriculum instruction for 2 years. So I like to say I went from overseeing kids to overseeing the adults. And so I was in charge of curriculum instruction, the registrar, the counselors. I did the master schedule. I was in charge of all this. As my principal told me, you're in charge of everything except discipline and cheerleaders. And so actually a lot of fun, that one. And then I became a high school principal after 2 years, and I moved to Cold Spring Oakhurst High School in Cold Spring, Texas. This is my really true full introduction to rural school administration. We were a small school, about 550 kids, 45 miles from everywhere. That's the best way to put it. We were outside of Huntsville, outside of Conroe, outside of Livingston. Loved my time at Cold Spring. I spent 2 years as the high school principal and then 2 years as the assistant superintendent. Had wonderful experiences there. Really grew as an education leader. I was hired at a high school that was low performing. And the next year we were one kid from being an exemplary campus.
Oh, wow.
Really proud of the work we did with my teachers of digging in, and really it was as simple as getting in the classrooms, focusing our teachers, making sure that they did relevant and rigorous instruction, and really just being there. That was all. It's as simple as that. I always say it's not hard to turn around school if you're willing just to be there and make yourself visible and go from there. That's the biggest piece that you can get. And so turned around the campus, was moved central office to kind of help do the same thing at the other campuses, which really focused on doing a lot of principal instruction, AP instruction, of helping them be in the classrooms, schedule the classrooms, really looking at it with a lens of, okay, how can we have a real true department meeting that's geared towards, student results and things like that. And so that's where my focus was. Had 2 wonderful years there. Latanya Goffney, who I think you know quite well.
I do.
Who was the AASA incoming president, if I'm not mistaken, was my superintendent. So she and I got our masters together at Sam Houston. And at that time, I wrapped up my doctorate at Sam Houston. And then she told me, go forth, young man, and pushed me to go apply for some soup jobs. And I found a place in Gerald, Texas. And Gerald, for everyone here who has no idea where Gerald is a small little town about 40 miles north of Austin, at the northern part of Williamson County. When I got there were 972 kids in the entire district. And it was experiencing growth. We grew, I was there 8 years, and we grew from 972 kids to over 2,200 kids.
Oh, wow.
And so one of my takes on rural education is rural is different wherever you are, whether it's state by state within the state. There are rural schools that are dying and dwindling. There are rural schools in some locations that are basically going to grow themselves, but you start growing so much when you become more of a suburban school than you become a rural school. And so I experienced that at Gerald, and I'm kind of going through that here in London. Spent 8 years and there. My wife had always wanted to live on the coast, and so I took a job in Palacios, Texas, and spent 4 years in Palacios. Total opposite, where it was a town getting smaller and smaller. Palacios is a little tiny shrimping capital of Texas, halfway between Corpus Christi and Houston on the Gulf. And so we're right there on the Gulf. Shrimp boats leaving out, going all across the waters from Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, coming out. The main industries in Palacios were shrimp and shrimp farms and turf grass. And so it was a very interesting place to go from. I was in Gerald when it was rock farms and limestone. Basically, all the Austin stone comes from Gerald. We had 30 quarries in our district. So I've had some really diverse economic pieces in my rural communities. And then I've been here in London for a little over a year. London's kind of back to that Gerald model. We're just outside Corpus Christi. 14 years ago, there was no high school. It was a K-8 community with 300 kids.
Wow.
As of today, when I say today, I literally had my numbers came in about an hour ago. We are at 1,915 kids.
Wow.
And so we started a high school 14 years ago. We're growing about 8% a year. Realistically, Corpus is growing out into the London community. There's no town of London. It doesn't exist. It was an old farming community that was started on a track of the old King Ranch. And so the King Ranch family had the land here, sold it off, and became a little community. And so even though it's so funny, London was nothing, and now there's a highway that connects me to downtown Corpus that realistically, it takes me less time to get to Corpus than most of us at Corpus Christi to get to downtown because of that highway that came through. And so we're the growing part of Corpus Christi. Actually, in the whole Region 2 area in South Texas, we are the only truly growing district in the area, seeing more than 1% or 2% growth. And so we like being the odd one, but it's a great location, great kids, blessed to go to a district that has success across the board, athletically, academically, just a high achieving school district. It's also a different rural school in that it's more of an affluent school. More than any school I've been in, this is as a more of affluent students than the rest of them. And so it's a really neat situation to be in. And so, and even though I'm surrounded by cotton fields right now, like it is cotton harvesting all every day. All I see is the combines that I get to wait on driving home. So again, it's still rural. It's just a different kind of rural. And so that's my career piece there. And so does that kind of make sense? What you're looking for there, Melissa?
Absolutely. So I two things that strike me. Number one, London ISD is a bit of a homecoming for you. And so how does that personal connection to the area influence your leadership? And then second, context is something that we talk quite a bit about in rural education, how rural looks different from one community to the next. And you have definitely experienced that, not just in rural communities in London, but your whole career has been exposure to different contexts and what leadership looks like in each of those things. So can you talk a little bit about how that homecoming to London has influenced how you lead the district?
Well, it's real funny. So I grew up I grew up all over the state. My dad was a career technology teacher. My mom was a fourth grade teacher. So we moved from my dad moving up to becoming career technology administration. That's how we moved around. I spent time in urban schools. I spent time in suburban schools. I spent time in rural schools. Sixth grade, I was in Carthage, Texas. It's up on the Louisiana border. To Orange, Texas in the southeast from my third, fourth, and fifth grade, which also quasi-rural. Then I was outside of Austin, and I was outside of Corpus Christi. So I had those suburban schools as well. Where I grew up, realistically, by the way, the crow flies is about 10 miles from where I sit right now. Now, it takes you a long time to get there.
Sure.
As the crow flies, it's right there. And growing up, it's so funny. I had no clue London ISD even existed. Now, to make it even worse, when London had no high school, we go back almost 100 years in London ISD. But when there was no high school, the kids went to either Tolosa Midway High School, where I went to school, or Flower Bluff High School, where my brother went to school. My parents moved after I left. I had no clue London existed. At one point, I was in college, and I drove from here going to Kingsville for something. I drove by it said London School. That's my earliest memory of London ISD. So, what's funny is my wife and I left Corpus Christi 25 years ago. I left Moody High School in Corpus, and we went to Huntsville 25 years ago. And we always wanted to come back here. We loved Corpus. My friends are here. My mom's here. My mom lives 7 minutes from me. My dad lives 6 minutes from me. My brother lives 5 minutes from me. And so we always wanted to come back, but it was never the right place at the right time. London was the right place for me. And so it's so odd coming back because I always laugh. Corpus Christi is the biggest small town in the world. They know they're big, but they don't know that they're big. And it has caused problems at times, and it's fantastic at times. I moved back 25 years later. Traffic is still the same, and every location that was bad, it's still bad. The roads have been improved. I have friends who I've grown up with all over the place. I came to London, and I have several people I grew up with in Tolosa Midway, Cal, and it's called Annaville. London had a lot of Annaville transplants because it was very similar. It had that kind of quasi-agrarian farms, ranches, and it kind of had it. So they moved over here. In addition, I coached football at Moody High School, which is literally, I could be there in 7 minutes on the road. I have several of my former players and kids who I taught who have kids now in London ISD.
Wow.
So what helped me coming here is that I was from Corpus. And as everyone knows, every town has it. There's something about being from that town that gives you some knowledge, some base, things like that.
Yep, for sure.
It kind of gave me some credibility. Didn't know how or what, but it did. Knowing that my whole family is in Corpus helped me ingratiate with the London people a lot faster.
Yeah.
Being an Annandale kid helped me ingratiate a little bit faster. Having people I know who knew me as Coach Chapman, or knew me and things, knew my brother, who's been a longtime coach at his school, at the Flower Bluff soccer program. I don't think I realized how all of that stuff would impact being the leader of this school. The city council members, one of them went to school with her daughter. Her daughter worked for the county commissioner. So it's all these little things that kind of merge together that gives you a little bit of knowledge, gives you a little bit of leg up, gives you a little bit of edge that somebody else coming here may not have had or experienced.
Yeah, that's such a good point, especially when you're talking about people that are coming into a rural community that either don't have knowledge of what rural is, or they don't know the background. They don't know the backstory and who's been feuding with who for the last 100 years over what piece of land or over what failed relationship or any.
And I lived both of those in my previous two stops. This one was the first one that, all that stuff added up and helped me compared to being the new guy, being not from here, not knowing where the hell he was. All those things are exactly right.
Yep, exactly. I want to shift gears just a little bit because you serve as president-elect of the National Rural Education Association, and you are the chair for the legislative committee. So let's talk a little bit about some of the biggest legislative issues facing rural schools right now. And we can start in Texas, and then we can work our way up to the national level. So what's at play right now?
It's been a very tumultuous few years in Texas educational policy. This is my 13th, 14th year as superintendent. And I like to say with some of my elder statesmen superintendents, it used to be a lot more fun. Because we had a voice, we were listened to. We kind of had we could make decisions that would impact our kids, and we had some flexibilities. A lot of those are really going away. It's been very interesting. I'll say this story first. I'll come back and go give more clarity. Last night, or actually yesterday afternoon, my wife, who serves in our district as an academic advisor. She oversees dual credit programs overseas. She works with the counselor a lot. She does a lot of the same things the counselor does, just not the actual behavior part. She does the academic side, the dual credit, the SATs, all that stuff. And we had this bill passed in Texas called SB 12, which most people won't know, but it's kind of it's a parent rights bill. And she was getting the counselor part of it. I'm getting some other part of it. And it's the point where we have to send a letter out to parents that explains, these are our normal counseling duties and counseling things. Are you okay with your child receiving counseling services? If we don't have that signed back, our counselors can't help a kid. Same thing for nurses. These are our normal nursing things that we do in our nurse's office. If they don't sign back, my nurse can't help the child. I've seen a form home that says, these are our clubs and organizations that are open to your kid. Are you okay with your a kid can't join a club or organization without parental permission. It's going to really change how we do school each and every day. And as a small rural school, who's going to be in charge of all these things? How are we going to make sure we have this and double check this? There's a lot of unanswered questions. That's just one bill of about 300 that were passed about education. And that's the low-hanging fruit compared to the vouchers, compared to the assessments that may or may not go away. All of those things are in place. And so these last again, 6 years, which for us is 3 terms, because we are 3 legislative sessions. We're a biannual legislature. We come in on the biennium every 2 years. Our legislature meets. So it means 1 year you actually can get some work done because they're not giving you something else to mess up. Because as we always joke, they only have one job to do, and they have one bill they have to pass, which is the budget.
Right.
Everything else they do because they think they're trying to solve problems that don't exist. They're doing a really good job of that. A really good job right now of that. But it's. I don't think I know people listening to this podcast may not understand Texas politics, but much like other states, technically we're a 2-party system, but officially we're not. It's a one-party. We're one ruling party, and we're having the ruling party isn't even getting along with itself, and so the best way to put it, there is a fight in Texas. See who can be the farthest right. And that's the kind of, we're getting caught up in that game sometimes.
Sure.
And it's hard. We just want to take care of kids. There's some things they've passed, no problem with. Hey, hold us, it cut our reporting for CPS from a 48-hour requirement to a 24-hour requirement. These things sound great in nature, but when you get into a school, sometimes it's hard. And so we're going to figure it out because it's what we do. We always find a way to do more with less. Our legislature had not touched us, our funding-wise, in 4 years. We were feeling it really bad. They did address some parts of funding, except what they did this time was they tied our hands. This money can go to this and this alone. And so, unfortunately, as you know, many of your listeners probably know, not every school is the same.
Yep.
And every school has different needs. And yes, they're trying to limit some issues at some large urban schools. What happens, though, is the smaller schools, the rural schools, end up paying for the sins of somebody else's mistakes.
Yeah.
And it really ties down what we can and can't do to help out our kids as we go along the way. And so that's the hard part.
Yeah. Those unintended consequences can be just so huge in a rural community.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And as you pointed out, human capital is a concern. There are not the departments of people that are able to address some of these requirements, whether they're paper-based requirements or they're information that needs to go onto your website or those kinds of things. Just really take a lot of time and effort. And when you're small and you have people that wear multiple hats anyway, who's going to do them? So it's a really good question about the reality being affected on the ground as it relates to some of your bills.
Our Open Meetings Act rules have changed. It's no longer a 72-hour posting period. It's a 3 business day posting period for agendas, for school board agendas.
Oh, so you can't count weekends anymore.
No. And so if I have a Monday board meeting, I had to post my meeting realistically by Tuesday, the day before, because the lawyers aren't sure if Monday counts as a day, even if I'm meeting after, at 6:00. Board meetings cannot be held during the school day.
Right.
It's a little thing. We're literally, our legislative session technically ended around Memorial Day. We're back in a special session right now, which nothing's happening because they're not all there. But we're a year-round school. I had to get some policies early that had to be in place before school began. And so like my cell phone policy, our kids can have cell phones in the school day. Again, I'm not arguing with that. That's a great piece. But we had to have some stuff done beforehand. And so we had to get some early pieces of it to take action. And now we're just now, you know how it goes. A legislative session meets. It takes months to read through all of the legalities and legalese of those bills to find out what it looks like in your back pocket. And so we'll be adopting policies from now until April to meet the needs.
Yep.
But some things we can't do. Here's a small rural school for you. In Texas, only schools above 10,000 were required to record meetings, right? Now, every school has to have an audio recording of their board meetings, and it must be posted, don't quote me, I think 48 hours.
Wow.
And so we don't have the technology, so we have to get the technology effective September, to record our board meetings and post them. And so I'm not getting funding for that.
Right. Unintended consequence.
And it doesn't cause you, so we'll get there.
What about at the national level? What are some of the things that NREA is focused on right now?
Well, the one thing I'll tell you, I didn't give you the big piece of Texas that we did. We were past one of the largest voucher programs in the country.
Yes.
With a $1 billion price tag, which will begin in the 26-27 school year, supposedly. And we don't know what all that looks like. Now, everyone kept saying rural schools won't be hurt. Rural schools won't be hurt. That was said over and over again in Texas. In some areas, they will. I'm technically, a rural suburban school. I have private schools that my kids will get to in 8 minutes. Now I'm blessed. I have a great district. I think I won't lose as much population as others will. But I know several of my small rural compadres who have private schools in their district have had for years. And so we don't know what all that looks like for schools.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that voucher piece has been recently done at the federal level. Who really knows how that looks like? There's so many. It's such a gray area that no one knows about. So we're going to see how that plays out. The two big things I'll put out about what small rural about NREA is really looking at, other than just, hey, don't forget about the small rural schools. Make sure we're there. My last 2 trips to DC with NREA, the two main things I really was seeking about was the Safe, Secure Schools piece, which I know you had your here in your previous podcast with Jamie Green. Worked a lot with Jamie on that piece. And honestly, Jamie and I have been pushing to fully fund IDEA. It's not necessarily a rural school only piece, but I think it can impact all schools very quickly. IDEA, this is the 50th anniversary of IDEA. IDEA has never been fully funded across the schools. I think it's only around 12% of it is funded. In my previous district in Palacios, our shortfall was about $600,000 a year, making up what the federal and state monies I got for special ed and what my local monies are paying for. So if I was fully funded, then that other money goes towards the other 80% of my kids who are not receiving special education funding and services. And so that's a big piece that helps all schools. There's no doubt that it's a very volatile environment in DC about what I say volatile in that there's all this talk and rhetoric. There's not much being done sometimes. The problem is the not knowing more than it's the actual passing of laws and legislation coming through. It's what's going on. There's no doubt that funding, is a big issue, as we saw with the title monies that were held up here just recently. Mm-hmm. And if those things happen again, it's very hard to go into a school year and make a budget when you're not sure what you're going to get and not going to get.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
Just plain and simple. Yep. It's plain and simple. So there needs to be some solidification of what's going to go on. Department of Education, yes, it serves purposes. I'll be honest, sometimes they've not been the easiest to work with on my behalf. I'll be honest with you. But as long as the monies keep flowing, I think schools will find a way to make it work. I mean, DOE wasn't there 25 years ago. It's just the money came from other sources. As long as the money doesn't go away, we can find a way to make it work. It's giving us the contacts, giving us, let us know what's happening, and as always with NREA, REAP is a big priority with NREA schools, keeping the REAP funding. Not every school qualifies for it. I can tell you that I haven't always qualified for REAP funding through the federal government. But it also needs to be simpler and easier. That's the bigger problem is the REAP money's there. And sometimes it does go unclaimed because it's not the easiest process. And even though they try to simplify it, it still isn't necessarily always simplified.
Sure. Sure. So if I was a superintendent or a principal and I had not done advocacy work before, what would you advise somebody to do that is interested, but it's just not in their comfort zone?
So I learned how to do this. First and foremost, it's okay to not know what you're doing because it's something different. And you only get better at it as you do it. And so really you have to get that way. You're never going to be truly confident about it because you never know what that office is going to be like when you go in there. And so it's almost like the first day of school every day, because you never know what you're going to get when you approach it. And so what's going to happen?
Yep.
And so I say that first. Secondly, what I always tell people when the first time going is, whatever you have, make sure you can tell your story in 10 minutes or less, because you don't know how much time you're going to get in front of somebody. And part of that time, you're going to have to educate those staffers. You're probably not visiting with the legislator, and it's okay. It's okay if it's not the legislator. It's okay if it's not your representative, if it's not your senator. Their staffers behind the scenes are equally as important, and that's where you need to build your relationships with. Build relationships with the staffers, get to know them. Now I have, as long as the staffers stay around for long enough, it's a very volatile world for them as well. You have a contact to get in to visit with. Start with the person who represents you first. If you really get the one who you live in their district, that's the one you want to really try to build up first. And that gives you a little place to get in, get comfortable, get conversations, really know them and their staff, and then branch out from there. The other thing is, when you go in, have your story to tell. It's not just, don't give them a paper with facts. Talk to them about your kids, about what your district looks like, about what the issue does for you and for your kids. They want, even though when you leave, they want to have the data, you need to have the story to hook them first. And that's the biggest piece. Have the story about why this is important, what this does for you, all these kind of things. That goes a long, long way as you're working with those legislators. Because again, they're human beings. And so human beings do have emotions. Sometimes they may act like they don't, and that's okay. But just know you can get in there and just try to be more comfortable with them. And time after time, it becomes easier. I promise you it becomes easier. And also as you develop those relationships with the staffers and sometimes legislators, I've been blessed to have the state, the U.S. congressman who represents me here in London. I've been in his office the last 2 years.
Nice.
There's things like that. Find ways, if you went to the same college that person did, drop that in your email to them. Find ways to get in about, did you live in that area, about that, put you in the area. Now, from when I'm going back on behalf of NREA, I've really the last couple of years tried to target as many of the Texas delegations as I can. And so I've kind of developed a little bit there. I know that these next couple of years as president and stuff like that, I'm going to have to start really branching out more and more. And I mean, we cram it all into a 2-day visit, and I'm exhausted when it's all said and done. I don't know how I'm going to do this. So I totally started to expand beyond other states. I could probably, there's no doubt you can spend a week up there and never see everything you want to see, and go that way. But it's so worthwhile at the federal level to go and have your voice heard. I will tell you, so I really started at the state level with TREA. So I was a Texas Rural Education Association member since I was in Gerald. So I also became an NREA member. I didn't become as active in NREA until a little bit later, just because I was still getting my feet wet in Texas. But I really got into the advocacy piece with TREA, was part of their legislative committee, part of the board there. The lessons I learned in the state house to take to the federal level. But I also will say, sometimes you get received better in DC than I do here in Texas. And so it's interesting. But a lot of it really does come down to just taking the time to make those relationships in one way or the other, and go from there. And don't be afraid to take a friend with you. It's okay to have more than one person in there. Having true. 2 stories is great. So last couple of years, I've had Bill Tarleton from TREA who's joined me. I've attacked several with Jamie and with our friend Heather from New York. Especially at the national level, having those multiple pieces is great, and it can make an impact.
Yep. It's so important. Just, we talk a lot about being at the table when decisions are made. And so, making sure that you are in those rooms when conversations are being held so that those stories, as you talked about, are what that decision maker is thinking about when they cast a vote. So really important to be involved at that level. So I want to change gears just a little bit and get some feedback from you on rural leadership, because we know that rural superintendents often have to be both the visionary of the district and they have to be hands-on. So what are the pressing challenges that you see that are facing rural leaders today, whether it's in Texas or through your work with NREA, different things that are being struggled with across the country?
Well, I mean, we could start with the obvious as funding. There's no doubt that funding is a universal piece. The problem is we really can't do much about funding. The funding is what it is for inside your state, inside your district. I think that there's no doubt that rural leaders have a history of making do with less and making things work. And I know that they will keep doing that. And so I'll put the funding aside for now. There's no doubt that teacher shortages are felt quicker in rural areas, but I also think that the rural schools are quicker to maybe think outside the box. I mean, I know that there's a push in Texas, among others, for 4-day weeks, for inventive calendars. Here in London, we're a year-round school. So we start, I mean, I'm in week 4. It's the middle of August. I'm in week 4 of school. My kids come in earlier. My kids come in earlier. It's basically 6 weeks on, a week off. That can't always happen in a big school. My parents love it. They've been doing it for 20 years here. And so I think a small school, a rural school is more willing to take a chance and try something outside the box to help bring in their people. But there's no doubt that the shortages are getting worse and worse, harder and harder. You know, one, everyone has a shortage. And then two, you have the locale and the remoteness that can harm a rural teacher. The one thing that Texas, I'll say, I give them credit for this, that our legislature, when they passed the compensation for teachers, it was 2-tiered. Schools with more than 5,000 teachers got a $2,500 raise and a $5,000 raise, a $2,000 and $4,000 raise for teachers. And a school smaller than 5,000, it was 4,000 and 8,000. So my teachers got $4,000 if they were in year 3 or 4, and if they were 5 or above, they got $8,000 a year. Wow. So it's the first time that's ever happened where they tiered for taking care of teachers in smaller districts. And so we've seen some benefit of that across the state. I mean, I was fully staffed, a couple weeks out. And so that goes a long way. That helps you sleep a little bit more at night. There's no doubt that we're going to have to face challenges with the vouchers in some way, shape, or form. There are several states. The one you reside has a very famous voucher program that was never going to hurt the rural schools. Never going to hurt the rural schools. It starts hurting the rural schools. We all know that in some way it's going to get there. And so that's got to be the biggest piece. And honestly, there's no doubt that the changing requirements from your state or from the federal government of things that you must do, whether it's that too many times become an unfunded mandate, that I think those are where the small schools get the hit a lot faster than the larger urban schools because of the economies of scale that they have with staffing that we just don't have. Mm-hmm. We just don't. People already wearing so many hats, and then it's like, how do you do this? And so, like, case in point, those sheets. How am I going to have someone on my campuses make sure that this child has their nurses form and their club form and their counselor form before we provide services? There's some logistical pieces that just will haunt small schools and be hard to take care of. Yeah. But the part about, I will say that I think you and I are firm believers of this, the rural leader is the more resilient leader because, hey, some days I might be out cutting the grass. Some days I may be on a bus. We've come used to doing these things and finding ways. And honestly, the good rural leaders find a way to make it work and find a way to take care of their staff and kids. And that's what it comes down to.
Yep. You've talked quite a bit about how relationships, and especially in rural leadership, they're just everything. How do you intentionally build trust and relationship and rapport with your board and your staff and your community?
I'll start with the staff first. I try to be out and about and on campuses, just walking around. I don't just, they know now it's not a got you. I'm just going to go be out there. I'm going to walk the campuses. I'm going to check in with the principal, and we're going to walk and talk in the building, say hi to people. That's a big piece. Try to find ways to be around them more. I'm very visible you can never make every event. You just can't. It's impossible in today's school world. You make sure you make the ones that are important and see the kids and be with the kids. I'm the guest speaker at our professional communications classes next week. I'll always do those kind of things. Just try to make sure you hit and are visible with your teachers, with your kids. When we have trainings, I'll make sure I go in there and say hi to them. I make sure all those kind of things to be said and done. They know who I am. They know what I stand for, and try to know that, hey, if nothing else, I'm here to, if you got problems, come see me. We'll try to figure it out. And so that's the biggest thing. Board, honestly, you have to take time. You have to spend the time with your board trainings, your board workshops and stuff. You get away. I've been blessed with pretty good boards the majority of my career. And not everyone can say that. There's always ups and downs. Always. It's how it works. But we can try to, I think I've been very blessed to have some good relationships. It just takes time. And you have to be honest with the board. My board gets a weekly, probably bi-weekly, a big long report before board meetings. I try to make them look good in board meetings, where they know their stuff. Don't tell them how to vote. Just say, here's what the vote's about. What do you want to do with this? We'll figure it out. They know that if they reach out to me, I'm going to reach back out to them, and have conversations with them and answer their questions. It's just the same thing, just kind of being there and knowing you're there.
Yep.
In the community, the visibility is all you can do. In the community, you've got to be visible. You got to people know who you are. We had an event here last week for our athletic booster club, and I was there, and I had so many parents come up to me and just talk to me and spend time with there. And that's the biggest thing. Same thing at games and events. They saw me, they see me at playoff games, they see me at regular season, they see me, They know I'm there. And that goes a long way.
Yep. If you could go back in time and give first-year Superintendent Bill Chapman one piece of advice, what do you think it would be?
It's okay to take care of yourself too.
Talk more about that.
Most superintendents, and you know this, Melissa, we're really type A people. And
yes, we are.
There's a reason why we got this job in the first place. Going into that job as superintendent, and you have to build relationship with the board and the staff and the students and the community, all those things. Sometimes you can do it at the detriment of yourself. And sometimes we should say no, and we don't. And sometimes say, it's okay to miss some of, you can't make everything. It takes a while to get to that mentality. It takes a while to, look, I can't go to every band concert. I can't go to every theater play. I can't go, especially in my case, as the district gets larger and larger, I've got events. We'll have events 5 nights a week, and you just physically cannot do that.
Yeah.
But you have to, when you're first superintendent, you don't know that. And you really get into a habit of almost giving too much of yourself to where you can get ill, you can get all those things happen. Yep. And as I've gotten older, and after 14 years, sometimes it's okay to say, no, I'm going home at 4:30, and I have to do that so that I'm the best me the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And so, my wife has helped me with that quite a bit. We have to take time off. I've found myself guilty of that several times, post-COVID especially. I changed jobs in the middle of COVID. And so I really threw myself into a loop and made things. And so you've got to take time off. And on this calendar I have now, this year round, I have to find the time to take off to allow myself to recharge and do, because again, if you're operating at 50%, you're not operating the full potential for your district.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing. I wish I could have gone back and help myself learn earlier on.
Yep. Yeah, burnout's not just for teachers. It's anyone in a system that works with a school district. It's really something to be paying attention to.
I'm on year 14. I am abnormal for a superintendent. My first job, I was in one place for 8 years. So trust me, I get it. There is a reason why there's a churn in this job. You've got to find a happy medium and have a place to be there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you are, as I said at the beginning of our conversation, going to be NREA president starting in January of 2026.
Yeah.
It's not very long from now. What goals do you have as you look into your presidency? What are you trying to accomplish that will have a lasting impact?
I hope to find a way to help our NREA members and people who I'd love to see in the organization understand the benefits of NREA. It's a name, it's something, but do they really understand what they can get out of NREA? I will tell you that, I was an NREA member for 6-7 years before I ever got really involved in NREA. And so I wish I had started being active earlier. And I think it was more of, part of it was I was focused on my district, focused on this and that.
Right.
And part of it was I'm in Texas and I have so many Texas organizations I'm active in, a member of, that I don't think of the national piece. Even though I was an AASA member, I started going to national conferences in AASA in 18 or 19, I didn't do the NREA piece. And what's funny is the NREA would have been better for me, the conference that we have, than AASA in some ways because of sizes, because of locales. And so I would love to be able to do something to where I can kind of help members, especially the school members, because that's my background. Sure. I think we can do some outreach and grow many more university partners. Like there's very few Texas partners who are part of universities who are part of NREA. Well, we have some great schools with some great rural. One of them is right down the road from me at A&M Kingsville. They're focusing on rural kids. Rural Valley kids would be a great piece to fit into the NREA puzzle. And so I think that's the biggest piece of this. I want to, lack of a better term, spread the gospel of NREA and what it can do for you and why it's okay to be a little more active in doing it. Yep.
Oh, I love that. That's great. And I look forward to doing that work with you.
Appreciate it, man.
So I close every episode with this question. You probably heard it before, but what does the term rural advantage mean to you?
Quality of life. The part of, I will say, as again, I spent my career, this is my 30-something year in education, large urban schools, large suburban schools, small rural schools, growing rural schools. There's a piece of, I so wish I had my son in one of my rural schools as opposed to his large suburban school. I've loved seeing my kids come out of Gerald and Cold Spring and Palacios and London that have this, and I call it a quality of life piece. And it's not necessarily probably not the right term, but you get to be a kid. You get to be involved in whenever you want to. We don't uber specialize. We take care of we truly create a well-rounded individual that understands hard work, understands diligence, understands it's okay to get your hands dirty, take on those jobs aren't there. And so I use the term quality of life. I put all that piece in there. I think that you learn so many more skills in a small school. Now, there's some skills you learn at a large urban school. Not necessarily what I want you to learn. But I think there's a piece where our kids come out and they're just phenomenal. They're just the coolest kids in the world. And I've had kids go all across the nation to colleges from my small rural schools. Kids going to West Point, kids going, to California schools, kids going to LSU, kids going, of course, a ton to A&M and UT and UTSA and Sam Houston, all those schools. We have great schools in our state, but they go everywhere. And a lot of them succeed because at their small rural schools, they didn't just do one thing. They didn't just do one thing. And I think they understand that the importance of all those things, and they get their feet dirty and their hands dirty at an earlier age.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That just really resonates with me. I'm excited that your students have a leader that has that kind of vision for them.
I always say, and so I was at Cold Spring Oakhurst High School, my job is to provide choices and opportunities so you can be who you want to be and go where you want to go.
Yep. Well said. Conversations like this.
Come back here because you want to. Don't stay here because you have to.
Oh, that's even better. That's a great answer. When I have conversations like this, Bill, it reminds me of just how much leadership matters, not just, in the superintendent seat, which is where you sit right now, but really in every corner of our rural communities. Those things matter. And so London ISD is lucky to have you as a leader.
Well, I appreciate that.
So thank you so much for sharing your story today with us, Bill, and your insights and your heart for rural schools. I really appreciate your time.
Not a problem. Thank you.
And for our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, rate, and subscribe to The Rural Scoop or wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure that you share it with a friend who cares about the future of rural education. And as always, keep leaning into the rural advantage. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for tuning in to The Rural Scoop. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep these important rural conversations going. And we'd love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a comment or share your thoughts. You can follow along and never miss a new release by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform or by following us on social. We're on YouTube at The Rural Scoop, Instagram at msadorf1, and X at msadorf03. The Rural Scoop is produced with support from Vela Educational Consultants. To learn more, visit velaconsultants.com. See you next time for more great discussions about rural education. And as always, keep leaning in to the rural advantage.